years experience in design, right? And I would be talking to you today on common trends to avoid as an entry level designer, basically, right? So first, I would like to thank the team at Design with EU for the opportunity to share my experience with everybody, and then of course give my 2 cents on how to grow as a designer. Right. So I'm just going to share my slide on my screen, and most likely turn off my camera because I mean I'm camera shy, so I don't want everybody seeing my face. But I mean, let's get started. Could you please confirm that you can see my screen?
Yes, yes, I can.
Okay, great stuff. So yeah, as I said, yeah, my name is Queenette Onyekachi, and I'm pretty much here to give you my 2 cents, aka share or cut some soap for everybody, basically, right? So without further ado, let's get started and right into it. So almost everything that I am a product designer, a design mentor, and a public speaker, gamer, and of course the last sentence, if you can see it, I'm happy to announce that I'm also an aspiring baby girl, right? So for product design, I currently work as a lead UI UX designer at TMG, the Mullins Group. What we'll basically do is a software agency, right? And what we'll basically do is build and design and build products for businesses, right? And I have also worked with fintechs, and of course, I also have like personal or projects that I've also worked on in other tech spaces, right? As a design mentor, I currently mentor on ADP List. I have a link to that on my Twitter, which I'll probably share at the end of this session. And I currently mentor at HNG, the current cohorts going on, I9, right? So those are like the only places I am currently available to take mentorship, right? I'm not available for like personal mentorship for personal reasons, right? But I mean, at any time, if I change my mind, I'm of course going to announce that to the general public. As a public speaker, I've spoken at some places, which includes on Twitter Spaces and Experience Design South Africa, of course, Design with EU. So this is my first time here, and I'm really excited to be here. As a gamer, I play a couple of games, Apex Legend Mobile, PUBG Mobile, FIFA, PES, amongst others. So I mean, if you have interest in any of these, you could send me a DM, and of course we'll get grinding. As an aspiring baby girl, I have nothing to say about that. I'm just going to move on. So today I'm going to be talking to you guys or everyone on the call on common trends to avoid as an entry level designer. So when I thought of this topic, I backtracked to certain experiences I had as an entry level designer when I was getting started as a designer, from my very first project from my transition from graphic design, right, to product design, right, and all of those experiences that I had, even to HNG internship, finishing as a finalist, almost getting dropped out, and all of that, right. So I have now put all of this into this slide to share with especially entry level and junior designers, right. I don't know if I need to give a background story of how I got started in product design, but I feel like a lot of people have heard this story and it has become stale, right? But all you need to know is I basically transitioned from graphic design in 2019, yeah, to product design, right? Where I worked at a software agency in Lagos, right? And that was where I pretty much got introduced to product design, right? So I would also like to have a disclaimer because I mean it's in the nature of designers to drag people, and I really do not want to be dragged on the Twitter app. So I would like to add a disclaimer that Every of these opinions I've put on here are strictly my opinion and are also from my experience, right? So if you have a counter view, of course, I am very open to feedback, and of course, you can shoot me a DM, and then we can of course talk about it, right? There's really no need to fight or drag. So the first on my list would be information overload, right? So there's really nothing cool about being the designer with all the resources in this space, right? So I get a lot of DMs from entry-level designers or beginners, total beginners, who are like, oh, hi Queenette, I'm transitioning into product design, maybe from social media marketing or digital marketing or something, right? And they want resources, right? And the first thing I ask them is, what do you have a plan? Do you have a goal? What are you trying to achieve? Why are you transitioning into product design? Is it because you heard that there's money in tech and then of course you just want to join the bandwagon, right? Or are you doing it because you're passionate? Yes, of course, money is a driving force, right? But if money is your only driving force, you will realize that you're going to burn out really quickly, right? And then you will just realize that you do not quite enjoy what you do. Sorry, just give me a moment. Yep. Yeah. So you would realize that you do not quite enjoy what you do. So I have then realized over time that there are a lot of designers who want a lot of resources, right? So for everybody who reaches out to me to say, oh, I want a list of resources and all of that, I have now gotten to the stage where I have a template I send to them, right? And I am not doing them a favor by doing that, really. Thinking about it, I feel like I'm doing more damage than good. Here is why. I should be able to filter what is necessary, right, for these people. But then again, it's not exactly my job to do that. It's now the person's job, right? That is why I have come to now say, okay, you know what? As opposed to gathering all of these resources in your arsenal, right? You can filter through a list that you have and say, okay, for the first 6 months, I want to build my UI skill, right? So what that means is you're going to be getting resources that would help you enhance and build your UI skill, right? And then if you have another goal for, okay, say that for the next 3 months, I want to learn how to write a compelling user case study, or case study rather, right? You would of course now curate your the resources to fit that goal, right? So as opposed to just getting all the random every random resource that you see on the internet or on Twitter Spaces. So very more often than not, you would scroll through Twitter or say LinkedIn or any of the social media, that you will find things like tips and tricks on how to become a great designer in 1 year, how to be a good designer, 101, how to land your first gig in 24 hours, right? Are all of those things possible? Are they vague, right? It really just depends on you. Sorry. So yeah, my dad is actually on the call. So hi Papa, good evening. So let me just continue. Sorry. So information overload, right? So you would have all of these resources, right? And you should just be able to filter through them, basically, right? So moving on to the next one, dribbling everything, right? So you are faced with a project, and the first thing that comes to your head is Dribble, right? How you can go on Dribble and get inspiration. Is this bad? No, it's actually not. It's actually, it requires a certain level of skill to be able to to filter through Dribble to get the kind of inspiration that you want, right? An example is solving a design problem using certain design trends like the morphic design effect, right? Are those things really necessary, right? You just find out that when you are designing, those things do not necessarily fit into the use case, right? So you want to ensure that even when you go to Dribble, I recently had a project that I was designing, and majority of the inspiration I got for that particular page, I was designing a dashboard, was from Dribble, right? But I did not exactly go to copy and paste, right? So you have to understand that there is you have to understand what you are going for, and you have to understand the users that you are trying to build for, right? So there's no, like, someone in like an age range of 60 to 60, or I feel like 60 is a very huge gap. Say 40, right? 40 to, let's say, 50, they have absolutely no business with all of those effects that you are doing, right? So sometimes, really, yeah, less is more, right? So it is better to actually do less than to overdo it, and then your users are not using them, right? So next is the senior designer syndrome, right? So this is, I have a problem with a lot of designers who are in a hurry to call themselves senior designers. Being a senior designer is not a day's job, really, right? You would have a lot of responsibilities, right? So as I wrote here, I said the need and urge to claim this title because you have a few more cups on Dribble, or you have 2 new case studies that you copied, right? So a few months back, when I mean we in the design space, we started to see that some people did not have portfolios. Rather, what they call their portfolios were a duplicate of other people's portfolios, right? But you would then find that most of these people are even referring to themselves as senior designers, right? So there is actually a responsibility beyond that title, right? So it's not just telling or putting it up on your bio that, oh, I'm a senior designer with, I mean, maybe 2 years experience or even 3 years experience like myself, right? So I begin to ask questions like, can you manage other designers? So as a senior designer, right, you will be put in a position to manage other designers. And if you have never really done this, how would you deliver, right? Now, it's a different thing if you are trying to upscale from being an entry-level designer or a junior designer, and then growing your skill, and then maybe over time, your design manager sees potentials in you, and then makes you maybe a lead designer, and then from there you are able to now build like those sustainable skills to call yourself a senior designer, right? That makes sense, but not because you know how to design or you know how to move things on Figma, then you now say, oh, I'm a senior designer. Nah, it doesn't work that way, right? You have to have other soft skills and even some hard skills, right? So are you able to manage stakeholders, right? Can you even stand those stakeholders meetings, right? So the meetings in these stakeholders meetings are not, they're not beans, really, right? There's usually a lot of pressure, right? Because now it's now beyond you as a designer, it's now the business, right? So when you're speaking with stakeholders and you are now talking about things like maybe you built a component library on Figma or something, and they're asking you, how are you able to tie this into our business goals? And then you do not know how to answer those questions because you are not operating at that level, right? So you will just realize that um, there is actually more, right? So another thing would be, what product strategies do you have up your sleeves, right? So it's, as I have said, it's really just beyond being a designer. So as a senior designer, Isaac, I see you have a question, and there will be a time for that. So I'm going to take a question in between, right? Yeah, so you would actually need to put yourself in like a business level, right? So I remember when I was given the leadership position at my company, I then began to concern myself with things like business strategies, product strategies. How can we, even as a team, how do we build ourselves as a team, right? And then I remember my boss would, some decisions in the company, my boss would usually, hey, Queenette, what do you think about XYZ decision, right? And he would even sometimes put me in a position to make certain hard calls, right? So you would realize that as a senior designer, you have to be able to put yourself in like an ownership position and a leadership position, because there are certain times you would have to give feedback on your team, right? And then those feedback would not necessarily even suit your team or even you, right? So how do you communicate that to your team, right? So yeah, that's Then the next is communities do not equal WhatsApp groups. Not at all, right? So as a community, you should be able to, a community is meant to have structure, right? So I have here, I said communities go beyond WhatsApp groups. Just chill, right? Don't exit yet. Evaluate your goals and how they align with these groups. Now, I also have a couple of designers who are in my DM to say, oh, I don't belong to any communities. How do I grow? Now, communities are very essential in your career, right? So how you are going to move, like they say, follow who know road, right? So it is basically your community will determine how you grow, right? And the speed at which you grow, right? The people you know, the people you surround yourself with, and all of that, right? So some of the things I would not advise is, number one, you've joined a group like a year ago and then only the admin is chatting on that group. So I feel like that person has a power problem. They don't want you to chat. They just want themselves to be the only ones dumping maybe resources on you or job offers on you, just like that, right? So I do not quite support, especially an entry-level designer, to belong to a group like that. You want to belong to communities or groups that help you grow, right? So they give you feedback on your work. They give you resources that channel to your growth, right? And then if you need a block while probably you're working or something, you can always fall back to say, hi guys, I am having this problem at this time, and I would really love feedback on XYZ thing, or I'm having any difficulties. I really like some help, right? So those are the type of communities or WhatsApp groups that you should belong to. Now, let me state that I actually am in some WhatsApp groups that have really been helpful to my growth as a designer, right? So the next thing is, there are some groups that are just noisemakers, right? So all they talk about everything but your design or your career growth, right? So these type of groups, they could be very distracting, right? Because they would say everything, right? But anything about design, right? So I remember one time I joined a group. I can't even remember the name of the group, right? You will just wake up in the morning and then you are seeing over 1,000 messages. How do I catch up with what has happened before, right? And even if there are like stuff that has happened in the group, how do I know where to start from, right? So I would just ordinarily just find myself scrolling through all of those messages and then probably missing out on the real value that has been dropped, right? So I do not recommend those type of groups. And if you find yourself in that kind of group, you can reach out to the admin and say, hi, I have a suggestion. Can we do XYZ thing better to suit our goals, right? So you don't necessarily need to be a floor member. Yeah, you can also have an input in these groups or communities, right? And as an entry level designer, at every given opportunity, you should find a way to impact where you are, right? Don't sit down as a floor member. When I joined HNG I7, I remember one of my goals was to get noticed by Mark, right? Even though at stage 9, I was dropped, right? And of course, I was brought back because I finished as a finalist, right? But even though I was dropped, I just did that. I actually was noticed by Mark, right? Even though it didn't end it didn't end well, right? Or it ended well, right? But Alison, please stop whining me, right? So it ended well, right? But I just told myself that I wanted to get noticed by Mark. And I remember when Mark made a tweet of top 10 designers to look out for. My design was part of it. I remember I and my partner, who is a front-end dev, Yahaya, our design and the implementation was part of that top 10, the top 10 designers to look out for. So that was a win for me, and it was my goal, right? So certainly, I always look forward to making impact. So even up until when we wanted to, they were looking for designers to design stuff for like the Envato templates and stuff. I was one of the designers that was picked up. No bragging or anything. I'm just trying to say that at every point or everywhere you find yourself, right, you should always look for ways to make impact, right? So back to the community stock. If the community is not doesn't align with what you're doing, but you like the feel of being there, come up with a structure or a plan, right? And propose it to everybody in the group and get their buy-in and say, okay, you know what? I feel like we should do this thing XYZ way. How can we make it better? Or what do you guys think? Right? So you just realize that, oh, a lot of people, maybe there are even people in the group that have just been quiet, waiting for someone, just that one person to speak up, right? And then, yeah, you can just kick up from there. So also, do not join groups that have no real structure. They are just vibes on vibes. They are there for vibes, nothing else, right? I do not support an entry-level designer athletes to be in those groups. It's good to vibe, right? So you don't burn out or you don't get depressed, because design is really depressing, right? But then again, know when your vibe stops, right? And then make sure that your vibe is not taking you backwards, right? So ensure that you are in groups that have structures. Okay. So the next thing is hard skills versus soft skills, right? So you can design on Figma, do user research, follow. Okay, so you can design on Figma, you can do user research, or you can carry out user research, you can follow empathy mapping templates, but you can't communicate, you can't resolve interpersonal conflicts, you're not even a great time manager. So as a designer, as an entry-level designer, really, you would need to find a way to complement your hard skills with some soft skills, right? And so I find designers or entry-level designers and junior designers, they are really always concerned with things like auto layouts, components, how to design, how to build a design system, how to build a style guide. All of those things are fantastic, but ensure that when you are concerning yourself with those things or informations that or those type of informations, make sure that you have complementary skills that would, because at a point there will be a time where you probably have to do developer handoff, right? So how do you do that, right? There will be a time where a developer is going to cook beans on your design. How do you communicate to this developer that, oh, this is what I designed and this is what you are doing? I'm willing to guide you, and here is how you can do it, right? So if you're not telling the developer, the button I designed is 60 pixel by 60 pixel, or but for yours, it doesn't look like you have 40 pixel by 40, and the developer is like, but this is what it is and all of that. If there is a way for you to better, or the developer is like, well, see, I've done it, that's your business. So I had one of the mentees or one of the interns reach out to me today to say that her developer, or the person she was paired with, dropped off because, of course, the person was finding it difficult to handle the design. Not like it was anything serious, but when I kind of like inquired on what had happened, I realized that there was a misconnect and a disconnect somewhere, and also miscommunication between these people, right? So it then boils down to your communication skill, right? Some people at first sight, or at first instance, they are aggressive, and they are defensive rather, right? So when you reach out to a developer and say, oh, you are doing the wrong thing, they get very defensive, because in their head, nobody go tell me what I go do, right? But it now depends on how you communicate those things, right? I think when I started earlier, I used to avoid stuff like that, because I do not want to have those difficult conversations, right? But over time, I now learned that it is even more important to have those difficult conversations, because I mean, you just need to resolve it. If not, there's going to be some sort of friction between yourself and the person in question, right? So another thing is, how do you handle feedback, right? So if if you are one to be very defensive when feedback is given to you, right? Or you do not know how to handle negative feedback in particular, because some people would tell you, oh, great designs, but there are still some people who would, or some designers who would tell you that what you have done is wrong, right? So how do you handle those type of those type of feedback, right? So these are things that are very essential to you as a designer. So while you are learning how to do auto layouts, while you are learning how to use components, build a component, while you are learning how to do variants and all of that, ensure that you are also growing your soft skills, right? So that's for the fifth. So at this point, right, I will be taking questions. So if you have any questions so far, I think somebody's hand was up at the time. So if you have any questions at this point, I'll be available to take the questions now, right, before we move ahead. So I mean, that way I'm not just rambling through my points and then it's boring for everybody. So if you have any questions, please, the mic is yours.
Thank you very much. Okay, Igwe. Okay. Igwe, go ahead, please.
Yeah, Igwe
Good
Austin.
evening. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Very
Igwe,
well.
you can ask your question, please.
Okay. Yeah, my name is Igwe Austin from Lagos.
Okay.
Yeah,
Good to
before
have you here.
I was really moved when I saw the topic that you want to share today. Like let's say I'm just new into UI UX design. I started as a graphic designer, but I wanted more. So I found myself learning things like animation and all those things, but I wanted to focus more on UI UX because this is what I found so easy for me to do. So, and some I get my inspiration from mostly Behance and Pinterest. I try to recreate some things on my own and put some inspirations through YouTube also. Yeah, I'm a qualified graphic designer. I have a certificate on it, but most of the things I am doing today in UI UX is not really what I was taught. Like the teaching was far from what I'm getting for myself.
Okay.
So to ask you, what's your advice for me? Because what I do is like I read a lot and I listen to some people like professionals, will I say senior designers like yours, like some of the advice they gives, to newcomers in UI UX. So I try to follow some of those things. So for
Okay.
me as a designer, somebody that is coming in, and most of the jobs I do, I apply. What I will hear is, oh, we can't continue with you. I observe that maybe this person is just coming in into
Yeah.
UI US. What advice do you really have for me? Because after
Okay.
this, I'm going to send you my portfolio. I will help you. I want you to just try and look into it and just give me any correction that you can. Because I love learning, so that I can push from there.
Okay. Great one actually. That's a very important question, and thank you for asking. Right. So when I was starting, I'm going to use myself because I mean my experience would is my own teacher, right? So I'm just going to use like myself too, and then of course maybe talk generally, right? So when I was starting out, the first advice I got was to practice a lot, right? So beyond, there is like the reading part, there's like the reading part to it, and for someone who did not like reading, I don't know if I should be saying that, but someone who did not like reading, I I found it really difficult to read most of the resources that were shared to me. So what I did more was I started to replicate stuff. Now, I didn't go on Dribble to replicate Dribble designs or Behance designs. Not to say that these things are wrong, but what I tried to do was I looked at the applications I was using at the time, and then I tried to replicate it. I remember doing my very first UI design in Photoshop. That was the most difficult task of my entire career because it was so difficult to use, but I pulled it through. And I remember I saved it as my first UI design. This was sometime in 2018 or 2019 ish, right? I think 2018 or so, right? And when I showed it to the person who I was more or less like looking up to, she just told me, keep practicing, right? And then that practice is what has now led me to today. Now, the second person who I started to, I kind of like took some sort of mentorship from was some guy named Ajulu. I don't know if anybody here knows him, right? Ajulu was doing the daily UI challenge at the time. So I saw that he was doing that. And daily UI challenge is 100 days. So 100 days of designing, that's enough time for you to level up as a designer. So one thing is certain, your first design would never or would most likely not look like your last design. Chances are your last design will look way better than your first design, right? So for someone who is transitioning, the first advice is to practice more, right? Now, you as an entry-level designer, let me say this here, not a lot is expected from you because we know, right, that you're an entry-level designer and then you're a junior designer, right? So not a lot is expected from you. That is why you find that people who are exceptional as junior or entry-level designers, they grow really fast, right? Because we now see that, oh, okay, this person has exceeded the expectation, really, right? So as a junior level designer, right, ensure that you enjoy that phase, right? Because you might actually not be there for so long. So now the first thing is to practice. The next thing, again, like I'm going to repeat it again, is filter the information that you get, right? There are very high chances that two designers might say the same thing, but in a different way, right? Yeah. So you might have one designer say practice, you might have one other designer say replicate, like replicate designs. It's the same thing, but you should know that you should practice. Now, when you get those information from these designers, how then do you streamline it to achieve what you want, right? So as I said earlier, right, ensure that you have a goal. Tell yourself that in the next 3 months, I had this goal when I was starting out. I told myself no 3 months must meet me the same, right? That's what I told myself. I said no 3 months must meet me the same. So what that means is that every quarter I was learning something, right? I was either learning something or I was actively doing something that would push me in my career, right? So you want to ensure that you have a goal, right? And then make short and make measurable goals. Don't create unrealistic goals for yourself and say by this time next year I want to be working at Amazon. Is it possible? Yes, but what are the chances, right? So what are the chances? Ensure that, but if you tell yourself that by this time next year I want to be working at Amazon, but first in this next 3 months I want to have built say like an e-commerce website or an e-commerce platform, right, that I can that would market me well, right? So for that next 3 months, you are focusing on your small goal that would eventually lead to your big goal, right? So ensure that you craft a goal for yourself at every given time, right? Then the next thing is filter through the noise. If you go on Twitter right now, you will see that some people have uploaded very nice looking designs, and then the next thing, imposter syndrome comes in, right? And then you begin to feel like you're not worth it or the designs are trash. The truth is that person who you are looking up to probably has, let's say, 4 to 5 years experience in the field, right? And then you are comparing yourself with that person, right? So you just find that it's unrealistic to do that. So if you design a login screen today, ensure you post that login screen, get feedback from people, and if people do not comment on your post, fine, that's good. It shouldn't stop you from forging ahead, right? So you should continue and keep at that pace. Another thing is to stay consistent. Do not design one screen today and then come back 4 years later to design another screen. No, ensure that there is, like they say, consistency is, what did they even say? It's better to be perfection, right? Not necessary, or how did they say it? Not perfection, but consistency, exactly. So not perfection. So you're not exactly looking to be perfect. You just want to show up every day, right? Ensure that you show up every day for yourself, really, because you're not doing anybody a favor, right? You're doing yourself a favor, right? And you're your biggest competition, right? So ensure that for every time you design, put it out there, let people see that oh, this is what I have done today. Or you can even tell yourself, for the next 30 days, there's this friend of mine, his name is Kamzi, right? On my WhatsApp, he's doing something different from what we are doing. He's pretty much doing beats for 30. He's a music producer, right? So he's doing beats 30 days as a product as a music producer, right? So he's doing 30 days of producing, is it Afrobeat or something? I can tell you that the first time I heard the sound on the day one till now, right? He's on the 27th day. He's not the same. He has grown. Everything has become better, right? He has even been noticed by people in his field, right? So ensure that you are consistently showing up for yourself every day, right? And I think this is the last thing I would say. Out of the list of resources you currently have, sit down and shuffle them, like sort them really, right? Sort them into those goals that you have set aside for yourself, right? If you, like I said, you want to learn UI in the first 3 months, look for all the resources that talk about UI and then focus on those resources, watch them, and read what needs to be read, right? And if you see that there is anyone that is not exactly tying to your goal, move on from it, right? Don't stay on one for too long, right? So pretty much that's all I have for now. Maybe when you reach out to me, we can talk more.
Yeah, I'm really, really impressed. Like you just hit the nail on the head. Now,
Yeah.
finally, you said something about community. I know joining a community. I'm not that type of person like joins a community that make a lot of money. That really make me my alma mater. We have a group, but just because of the words coming out from there, I was like, this is not what I need. So I'm not the type. I like joining, even if it's a few persons that really understand where they're going. So what advice do you have for me? Or maybe is there any group you can recommend for me? Because I give the way I give my task every day, like I give myself tasks as if I was persuaded or maybe I was forced to do this. But I know I'm doing it for myself. I started
Thank you.
from marketing, I learned graphic design, but I wanted more. That was how I found myself in UI US. So I feel that I really need more.
Okay, so for communities, currently I do not have any I can recommend to you because most of the communities I belong to, they are now speaking on like a more senior level, right?
Okay.
But I mean, what I would advise is even if the community starts with you, start it, right? And let people join you. But ensure that these people that are joining in have same goals as you, right? So don't you can try to have a few senior designers in your community, right? But ensure that those senior designers, and again remember that people are busy, right? So sometimes if you add those senior designers and then you want feedback from them, they might not exactly respond, right? But it's fine if you can add a few of them, right? But as for communities I can recommend for you right now, off the top of my head, I can't think of any right now on the spot. I can't think of any. But I mean, if I stumble on any, or I mean, anybody in the group can recommend. If you currently belong to a let me not say juniors only design community, please recommend to Igwe Austin, and then have him join your community so you guys can grow together, please. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, Precious, Westgate.
Yeah, I think I'll just wait to the end of the thingy. So I'll ask my question.
Okay, great stuff. So okay, we don't have any more questions for now, so I'm just going to go ahead. Yep. The next thing is taking every project, right? So for this, I have been a victim of it too. So I mean, it's also a mistake that a lot of us are bound to make, because I mean, SAPA, there is SAPA in the nation, so you would most likely take every and any type of project. But the thing is, most of these projects are really not meant for you. Most of them are not meant for you, really. What I mean by that is you have to understand, or maybe you need to be operating in a particular level to take on certain projects, right? And there are some projects that would require a level of understanding, right? And then if you take that project, there are very high chances that you will flop. And when you flop, that is bad review for yourself, right? Is it worth the risk? Should you take the risk? Maybe, right? But ensure that whatever risk you're taking is a healthy risk and not a risk that would probably put you in trouble or something, right? So, I mean, there are, there are certain projects that can even get you into some legal issues, right? So you want to be sure that projects that you are taking are not one to probably burn you out, or you don't meet up with certain things and then it becomes an issue for you and your client, right? Because remember, there will be words on the streets for you, right? So if you do not deliver on certain things, it might affect you somehow, some way, probably in the future or something. So you want to be very careful with kind of projects you take, right? So as I said in this project, I said this one project will make you richer than Elon Musk, right? So even if the project is $1 million, I don't know if I should advise you to say no to $1 million, right? Or to just go and do your research and collect the project, or maybe outsource it. Yeah, that's another thing that people do. And I don't know if you want to do it. I have a few designers who have said never again. They would never do it again because it has brought more problems than peace to them, right? So they get a project from a client and then they outsource it for whatever reason. Could you please confirm you can hear me?
Yes, we can
Yes,
hear
we can
you.
hear you.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, I just wanted to be sure. Okay, great. So sometimes, yes, for some where was I? I lost my train of thought. Um,
Outsourcing.
okay, yeah, thank you for that. So outsourcing the project. So sometimes it might pay off, but imagine the person you're outsourcing it to, you probably do not have, you probably do not know the level of skill of that person, right? And then you outsource it to this person, and then the person flops. So you now begin to probably redo the project by yourself, thereby losing your time, money, energy, everything, right? So to be on the safe side, just say no to some projects. Just tell them, I'm sorry, I'm not available to take this project at this time. Like I said in my presentation, SAPA is temporary, right? Everybody's going to blow, right? We will all make it for real, right? So sometimes really no is the answer, and then really there's nothing you can do about it. So the next point is auto layout versus auto layoff. So now you know all the design jargons, but you are not a good team player. You require micromanagement. You are giving your boss nightmares. Wahala. Like that is the beginning of your problem. You know all the design jargons in the space. You know how to do auto layout. You know how to do variants. You know how to, you know the notch value, the correct notch values. You know the spacing and everything. But investor needs their money because an investor has put over $2 million on a project, and then they call you for a meeting, and then you are telling your boss how you spent your time building a correct design system, and then they ask you, how does this design system translate to money for us? You can't really answer because you spent so much time on the less, I don't want to call it an irrelevant thing because it's not irrelevant to know all of these things. But one thing you should know that you are building for users. The user does not care whatsoever how you used auto layout to better the product. It is good for you as a designer because I mean, if you do all of these components and all of those things, it will save you time as a designer, right? But ensure you do not spend so much time trying to learn all these design jargons or how familiarizing yourself with all of these design jargons. There should be a healthy balance between these two, right? So that's why I said, okay, another thing is I finished my task and so I'm chilling, but there's a backlog. So this is one of the problems that a lot of designers face, especially entry-level designers, because this is the part of micromanagement, right? As an entry-level designer, one of the ways to distinguish yourself from probably other designers that have been on the team is your ability to be proactive, right? So you join a team and then they have assigned tasks on probably Trello or something, and then you have moved all your cards that have been assigned to you. Fantastic, because you have done it early, but then you're not going to start chilling, right? But there's a backlog, there's a product backlog, right? And there are even some cards that have not been moved by other teammates. How about you reach out to your teammate and say, oh, I see you have this card pending. Can I hop on that card for you? Or how can I help, right? Or are you finding anything difficult? That way, right, you are showing that you are bringing value to the team, right? So everybody or people on the team would just understand that, okay, this person is actually very proactive, and then he knows, or he or she knows their stuff, and of course they want to be of great value to the team, right? And you will find out that when there are, I can't quite say, because I mean there are a lot of layoffs in the tech ecosystem currently, right? But in it at a time when there is a need to downsize the team, I can guarantee that if you are that person who is very proactive, chances are your name will not make that list, because they know the value you bring to the team, right? It brings me back to the point of saying, make sure that you are providing impact and value at every given opportunity that you have, right? Do not wait for your design manager to assign tasks to you. Do not wait for them to come back with feedback for you. Ensure that at every given time you are on your toes and of course working. I don't mean burnout. No, take some time to relax, right? But don't be there for too long, because there's actually work to be done, right? So you want to ensure that you do not give space or time for micromanagement, because people who need micromanagement, they are usually a pain they are usually a pain to their design managers, right? So you want to ensure that you are not being micromanaged, right? So yeah, so coming back to things about like component library on Figma and stuff, right? If for any reason that would affect the revenue of the company or the profits of the company, that's great, that's wonderful, right? And then stuff like that, right? So there was a time when in my team we needed a stable process to onboard new designers, right? Now that is a goal for the company, and then we said, okay, one of the ways we can do that is to have like a design system, or like a standard company style guide, so that when a designer is onboarded, they do not exactly start to reinvent the wheel or something, right? So they follow these steps, right? So now that was a goal for the team. But if the goal for the team was probably to onboard 5 new clients every let's say every month, right? And then you're not coming to tell them that you would be working on style guides, and of course you have to arrange your components and stuff like that. There's a disconnect there, right? So you should avoid situations like that. Ensure that you are at every point connected to the goal of the business as a whole. Over to my next point. So this next point is, I'm sure that a lot of designers on this call have been anticipating pricing, right? Because pricing is one of the most talked about subject or topic in the design space. Everybody wants to know how much they should charge their next client, right? So the title is Druid's price list for OK's design system. I'm sorry, I don't know if there's anybody okay on the, no shots at you whatsoever. It's just sarcasm, right? But what I'm trying to say is, this might work for you to have like, I mean, I'm positive, or I'm pretty sure like everybody on the call, if not everybody, at least 80% of people on the call know who Druid is, right? And of course, we know the level of impact and value he has, right? So if you have a Druid's kind of price list, like you're charging your clients $10,000 for, you're charging your client $10,000 for a landing page, and then your design skill is nothing or anywhere close to the kind of skill that Druids have, right, or has, right? That would, I mean, you will just be wasting your time, right? So it's better to be true to yourself and tell yourself that, okay, at this phase of my design journey or design career, right, I can comfortably charge XYZ amount of money, right? So as opposed to living fake life, basically, right, and telling yourself that, oh, I can't, if Druids is doing it, I can do it too. Nobody's saying you should not charge high, but just make sure or ensure that you are giving that type of value to. Because if you tell your client or your potential employer that you want a salary of $3,000, and then maybe at your interview call, you're not showing them any value, chances are you're going to get bounced and they will not get back to you, right? So when you're studying Druid's pricing pattern, ensure that you are studying his value pattern too, right? And you are not just calling numbers off the top of your head or for the fun of it, right? That is the 8 points. So the 9th point is reality versus expectations, right? So one of the mentorship sessions I had one of the mentees I had asked the question. He says that he got into the company with the expectation. He got into the company as an intern. So being an intern means that you would have somebody you are probably learning from. But in Nigeria, that doesn't work, or that doesn't happen. Chances are the reason why they're hiring interns is because they want to pay low for the type of value they would get off a more senior person, right? So the expectation now is you are expecting that, okay, when you join this company, there's going to be some sort of guidance or some sort of help from a more senior person. And then you join and then you see that, oh, you're the only designer. That is the point where some of you now begin to say, I'm the lead designer of my company. Well, I will slap you into reality. You are not the lead designer, you are the only designer. So when you are now telling yourself that I'm the lead designer at Kuda, or lead designer at Timapt, or lead designer at TMG, you are not. So now the reality of things is you would have to I'm sorry, but you're not the only designer now, Addison. You're not the only designer. When you find yourself in a situation like that, you're not stuck exactly, or you might feel stuck, but you have to look for a way to untangle yourself, basically, right? So you have to look for a way to untangle yourself, basically, and that I always tell people who find themselves in that situation that is your moment, really. That is your moment to shine, really, because at that point you would be learning and unlearning stuff, right? And of course, relearning some of these things. Hi, Maria. Do you have a question for me, please? I see your mic is on. Is Eugene on the call? Okay, fine, cool. So I mean, we'll come back to why companies are hiring interns with 5 years experience, because that's not an intern, that's like a senior, that's an Agba designer. So I don't know why people are looking for interns with 5 years experience. But yeah, that's like a topic for another day, right? So the reality now is that you would most likely be the only designer, and as I said, that's your opportunity to shine, basically, right? Because at that point you would basically be making most of the design decisions in the company, right? So you want to ensure that you are making the right design decisions at that time, right? So a way to do that is, should you read up on more resources? I would advise that you do not, because that is not the time for you to be reading. Instead, seek some sort of mentorship, right? And there is this notion that your mentor has to be someone you talk frequently to. Not necessarily, right? Because some of these designers or some of these senior designers who have been in the game for like 10 years, 5 years, 8 years, and all of those, right? They write articles, right? They talk on podcasts. They have design spaces like this. Or you could write a cold email to them telling them that you appreciate their work, or you read or something they did, right? People like appreciation a lot, right? So don't enter anybody's DM or sending them an email without doing like some sort of background check, right? So when you do your background check, look for something you can appreciate them for, right? And then send them an email to say, oh, hi Queenette, my name is XYZ person. I stumbled on XYZ thing that you wrote on XYZ blog, and I am really excited about this because I'm in a situation like this at this time. However, I'm curious to know how you were able to navigate this problem, because I see that your conclusion did not capture that, right? When the person reads it, I don't know about anybody, but if I read a thing like that, I'll be very excited to respond. Because number one is the person has taken out time to read my stuff. The person has spotted that I did not give, like, maybe I did not give a conclusion that suits him or something, right? And then the person is saying, oh, I am in this situation currently. Or you can even add that, oh, I have been able to solve this problem through XYZ way. What are your thoughts on it, right? So that way you have said the problem and you said the solution, and then you're looking for feedback from me, right? So when I stumble on an email like that or a DM like that, I would respond happily, right? So when you find yourself in that reality, these are some of the things you should be looking to do, and not even reading up resources on how to be a better designer. The thing about how to be a better designer is that they would give you, it's going to probably be some sort of template, how to be a better designer, communicate better, do everything better. But then you're facing a problem that needs some sort of interaction or something, right? So seek some sort of mentorship at that time. So the next thing is ask for feedback frequently. Talk to your design manager regularly and get feedback on your performance. This is something I have learned. I think I learned it from like the first company I worked with, right? So there is the ritual, not the ritual, or how do I put it down? There's a process, or like, what's if something is done repeatedly, a ritual, right? That happens that every once in a month, you seek feedback from your design manager or your line manager or whoever you're reporting to at that time, right? Remember, feedback is like the key thing in your career, right? So seek feedback from these people if possible. I don't know how possible it is, but I know that there are some CEOs that have like direct contact with designers, right? So seek feedback, ask questions, or even ask the devs on your team, guy, how do you think my design is now, right? If they are beginning to hype you, tell them, calm down, calm down. I understand that my design is badass, but I want to know, how is my interpersonal relationship, right? What do you think I can improve, right? How is my leadership skill? On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate me on as a leader, right? Ask really specific questions, right? Because at that time, you are the head and tail of that department, basically, even as an intern. These things, when you do them, you are bringing some sort of value to like the company, and then when you want to leave, maybe it's to say, oh, okay, I want a promotion, or during your appraisals, right? You'll find that you would get more like positive feedback on your performance than when you're just quiet. Meanwhile, during those short times when you're having those feedback with like your design manager or whoever you're reporting to, they would most likely tell you things that you need to improve. So you won't exactly wait till your appraisal time for you to get maybe some sort of demotion or something. right? Or even a goodbye from the company, right? So do not wait until your moment of approval. Ensure that before that time, you're asking for feedback, so that when you walk up to your design manager to say, well, in the space of XYZ time, I have been able to grow my skill on this, and this. I feel I'm due for a raise, or I feel I'm due for a promotion. They would happily give it to you, because during all of those times, you have been able to show that you're a self-starter, you do not require micromanagement, and you are of very great value to the company. Don't always wait for your design lead or design manager to come and meet you and say, hi, what are you working on right now? Or, hi, how is the project going? Another thing again, I think I learned, I heard this from a friend, but it's something that I think we always do. When you are done designing, don't just throw the link at whoever you are presenting to, or you are reporting to. Ensure you ask for a minute or two minutes, right, for a call to demo your design, right, and walk them through your thought process behind your design, right. That way you would be able to get instant feedback as to what you're doing, as opposed to them you just flinging a Figma link at them and saying, this is what I worked on last night. No, don't do it. Always ask for calls, so that way there is like a conversation between yourselves, right. I feel like I've spoken so much on this 9th point. So the next thing is, I'm really sorry, I'm bringing out my inner Elon Musk today. So MacBooks too can cook beans. So I'm a Mac fan girl. Matter of fact, I'm an Apple fan girl, but I didn't start with Apple, right? I started with Windows, and it's very okay to use Windows. Right now, I'm even craving a Windows. Like, I wish anybody on the call can just give me a Windows. My father is here, so maybe you should be able to give me a Windows, right? I'll be very happy if you can. But MacBook Pro does not in any way or form equal good design, right? These tools are very great. They're a very great addition, but do not guarantee that you will become a better designer. Besides, M1 still lags. So you that you are using a Windows, and then your reason for probably not showing up every day is because your Windows is lagging, or I've had some very funny DMs. Hi Queenette, I'm at the beginning of my career, but I'm unable to design because my laptop is not working. Please, can you give me your old laptop or something? Who told you I have an old laptop? I don't have any laptop anywhere. Oh. I have just one laptop. Matter of fact, my old laptop, I don't even know where it is. The laptop I started designing with, I bought it 20K, one scrappy Windows, and it was frustrating, but I used it that way. Even when I switched to a Mac, my Mac was, if you hear the fan of my Mac, you would think it's an helicopter trying to take off, right? Because everything was just dead, but I still showed up every day, right? So that to say, when you now see all those tech bros, I'm not talking to anybody, but when you see all those tech bros, when they are going for like meetups, they will not carry their MacBook on one hand, M1 Pro and M1 Pro Max. Bros, just rest, I beg. It will still lag. Apple will still release M2, and they will ensure that your MacBook is lagging, so you can upgrade to M2. So MacBooks too would not make you less of a beans cooker. You still cook beans with your MacBook, right? So focus more on honing your design skill, as opposed to focusing you guys, as opposed to focusing on getting all of these gadgets. Exactly, there is already M2, right? So you will still upgrade. The upgrade never stops, right? So instead of focusing on getting a MacBook, it's just like saying I want a car, and then the next thing I want to buy a Tesla. Meanwhile, I don't have Tesla money, right? Precious, me and you know that your MacBook used to lag, but no problem. So I don't have Tesla money. So because I don't have Tesla money, I will not go and buy my small Benz. I will first start with what I have, right? Before I then move on. Yeah. So I would say that you should just focus on growing your design skills, and then it takes one client to become a big man in this tech industry. Really, right? It takes just one client to, you will see some people unboxing MacBook Pro, iPhone 14, and all of those really cute stuff, right? They are really fancy, they are really good. But as a junior level designer, don't concern yourself with those things as at yet. You will get to that level, trust me. There is no designer that probably has started in like 3 to 2 years, in fact, that has not grown to at least a better financial level, right? So even the MacBook can come from your company. These days, companies give MacBooks too, right? So you do not need to concern yourself with that thing. What you need to do is show up every day. I have this friend that has this very, very inspiring story. He said he started coding with his phone. I think right now he's not even in Nigeria. His company flew him out, right? So you would get to that level. Just don't concern yourself with these great tools or MacBook or anything, right? Then underneath, I said you that need external monitors and mechanical keyboard, come close. Come close, because you're not left out, right? I'm currently using an external keyboard, but if I tell you how much I bought my external keyboard, you will laugh at me. But is it serving the purpose? Yes, it is. It is serving its purpose very well, and I'm happy with it, right? But exactly, it's working, and I'm really happy with it. But am I interested in getting all of those curved monitors and all of that? Maybe not yet. Maybe not yet, because I mean, what I have currently works for me, and then I have a good laptop that also works for me. So it is what it is. Just start small. You would actually grow from there. The next and my final point. This is my final point before I go to a summary of what I have talked about. Following trends because you can. Trends are cool, but know when to stop. So because Apple designed Dynamic Island, you want to design Dynamic Island type of stuff for your products. You might be the only person on that island, last, right? So I remember when they brought out that update, Dynamic Island, everybody wants to do either an animation or how to design Dynamic Island on Figma or something. Everybody's doing a tutorial on how to do that and how to do this. And yeah, sure. Yeah. And you have to know that some features that you will be building, I mean, like when you're starting a project, or when you start designing a project, or when you hop on a new project, right? When you hop on a new project, you would have to know the goal of that project, and you have to know the target audience of that project, right? Now, if you're designing, there are some features I see on my iPhone that I am totally amazed about. But if someone didn't do a tutorial on how to use those features, I'll probably never have known that those things exist, right? An example is tapping 3 times on the Apple logo at the back of your phone. It can screenshot your whatever, as opposed to holding the volume down and what, right? Given that I'm a Gen Z person, no, I'm not a Gen Z, I'm a millennial, right, person, right? I can quickly adapt to features like that, right? Or I would like features like that. But if I give that to my father, he has no business with that at all. That is not his target audience, right? Or that's not what he concerns himself with. Is he able to make calls? Is he able to read his messages? Is he able to send? Probably, I don't even know if he would probably want to send an email using his phone, right? But is he able to do? So you have to do, it's a setting, you have to actually set it up, Alison, you have to set it up, right? But is he able to do all of those basic stuff, right? So you will not just, because Apple is doing Dynamic Island, you now to put Dynamic Island feature on on something that is very irrelevant, right? So ensure that when you are following design trends or tech trends, it fits the product you're trying to build, right? And then you are not stressing the user really, because there are really some features that stresses out the user, and sometimes these users never even use these features that you are building for them, right? So you have to ensure that you understand the kind of people you are building for, you understand the goal of the product, and you understand the goal of the users, right? You understand the pain points of those users too, right? In order to provide solutions that will solve their problems, right? So this is the end of all of those things, all of these blabbing I've done, right? But I'm just going to do a quick rundown of everything that I have said in the past, I think an hour plus. So summarily, first thing is be mindful of who and what you listen to as an entry level designer. There are a lot of misleading information out there, right? So yeah, it is what it is. There are a lot of misleading information out there, right? Going from people who are uploading fake resumes, people who are adding fake experiences to their resume, people who are copying what they call it, case studies and posting it on their own portfolios, right? And then you see all of those things, and then you're like, oh my God, when will I write like this person? Again, you are your own competition. Don't look at another person. Sometimes, yeah, I look at some senior designers and I'm like, oh God, when? But I am also very quick to kick myself into reality that these people have been in the space longer than me, right? So it's bound to happen, right? Those people they can have all of these things that I do not currently have. But would I have them? Of course. If I'm very deliberate and very intentional about what I want, I can have them, right? So the next thing is you're an entry level designer, but you won't remain at that position forever. Be intentional about your growth. I do not need to re-emphasize that. It's as simple as be very intentional about your growth. Communities you join, the resources you read, the podcast, all of those things, right? You have to be your goals and everything, right? So you have to be very intentional about them, right? There's an overwhelming part of the design career that nobody talks about. You might learn the hard way if you don't find out early enough, right? It is what it is really, right? So most designers don't tell you that design is hard. Most designers don't say. You just see the flashy things. You see them riding very great cars. You see them flying different countries for vacation. People like Alison. Alison was like in 2 countries in the past month. If you look at Alison now, you have heart attack. But were you there when she was having sleepless nights? No. Right? Were you there were you there when she was grinding and putting in all of those work? Right? You were not. Right? So ensure that you grind like Alison to be able to live like Alison. Right? So next thing is experience is the best teacher, but learn from other people's experiences. Right? So I think that's one principle I have for myself. Right? I try as much as possible to learn from other people's experiences. Right? Sometimes your own experience can be your best teacher, but I would rather not make mistakes that could be avoided, right? What that means is I could study somebody and see certain mistakes that they avoid. Like all of these things I have said in this presentation today, right, are things that you can avoid so that you do not necessarily have to make those mistakes again. That's the reason for this conversation, right? Next thing is content is king, but I cancelled that and said feedback is the real king. You do not know it all. Surround yourself with an army of people with the same goals, right? So it is what it is really. Community, right? Surround yourself with an army of people with the same goals. I remember when we got off it, in fact, before we finished HMG, we already had a little community for ourselves. It's called the Envato group, right? Or Envato Elites, right? That group was a support system for me, right? And I'm sure for everybody in that group, right? And it still is, yeah. Like, I know Igwe was saying you'll be tempted to say I should refer you, but if you join the group, everybody there grew together. So we are now on like a more advanced level, right? So it might be difficult for you to catch up. That's why I cannot quite refer. refer you to the group. But yeah, we'll revisit your case later. Then the next thing is make as much mistakes as you want to now and make them fast. These employees are not friendly with seniors. The expectations are high. Trust me, the expectations are really high for senior designers. That is why when I see people hurriedly saying I'm the lead designer or I'm a senior designer and all of that, can you do what these senior designers are doing? It's hard though. It's really hard because I mean, not to scare you, because of course you have to get to that level someday. You really have to get to that level someday. So so when you are making mistakes, ensure that you do not make one mistake 2 times, right? Learn from every mistake that you make, right? So like I don't know who said this, but I heard that if you make mistake once, it's a mistake, but if you make it twice, it's foolishness, right? So ensure that you are not making one mistake twice, right? Ensure that you are learning from every mistake that you make, right? And own up to those mistakes. Don't get defensive about those mistakes, because I mean you're a junior and an entry level designer, so you're bound to make mistakes. The next thing is it's okay to introduce yourself as a junior or entry level designer. A good number of these senior designers earned their titles through impact, blood, and sweat. I don't mean blood money or blood rituals or something, but you get what I mean, right? So so yeah, impact, right? So you will find that most of these senior designers that we have in the space today, maybe they have in some way or the other maybe done some sort of mentorship, so that way it was like a learning curve for them, right? So while they were teaching, they were also learning, or they have made impact in certain products. You realize that most of the products we have in Nigeria, they were part of the core process of building that product, right? Or digital products, right? So it's really okay to say, hi, my name is XYZ, and I'm an entry-level designer. I'm looking to learn, or I'm looking to do this, I'm looking to do XYZ thing, right? As opposed to being in a gathering and then maybe 8 people introduce themselves as senior designers or lead designers, and then you are pressured into introducing yourself as a junior designer, right? Chances are you will miss out on the opportunities that are meant for you in that conversation, right? So most times you realize that in a space like that, the senior designers are probably looking for who to mentor, or they're looking for who to work with them to achieve a certain goal, and then you will just miss out on that opportunity just like that, right? Every senior designer you meet today was once a junior or an entry-level person. So yeah, it's okay to actually to introduce yourself as a junior or entry-level designer. So the last thing I have to say is design is hard. Design is hard, but don't run, really, right? So anything that is chasing you from design can actually be solved, right? So design is difficult. I know that a lot of people will tell you that there's money in design. Is there money in design? Yes, there is. There's a lot of money in design. There are a lot of opportunities in the design space and stuff, but there is also the hard part of it. There are times where you have to stay up at night to finish up your task. There are times where you will feel anxious. There are times where you have to deal with imposter syndrome. There are times where I mean you would feel like you're alone, right? And you'll feel like you're not progressing. But the truth is, if you show up every day for yourself, there's progress, right? It doesn't matter how big that progress is, right? So yeah, this brings me to the end of my presentation. So thank you very much for listening to me. It has been a long 1 hour 30 minutes, I suppose, or less, at least an hour. So at this point, I am going to take any questions. You're welcome, Usman. I'm going to take any questions that you might have, any observations, any additions, anything whatsoever. Yeah, Precious, please go ahead. Or yeah, Precious, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much, Queenette, for all of this. First of all, my name is West. Don't call me Precious outside. All right.
Really
So, straight to the point here. Thank you very much for the whole presentation and all of that. Yeah. But I want to ask I mean, I wanted to ask this question on your the last piece that you spoke here, but I didn't have much time. So the question here is there's like there's a truckload of UI UX designers right now. Like almost every meeting or everywhere I go to, there's one UI UX designer right now. Yeah, and it looks like UI UX designers are taking over the world. Yeah. But at the same time, there's this a lot of these guys that don't have jobs and stuff. So what are you going to advise someone that is looking for a role in product design that I haven't seen since January and is still hoping and praying that he's going to get a product design role? So should he still continue looking for product design role, or he or she should try and venture into something? So what would you advise someone like that? Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much for that question, West. I mean, that's a very interesting question because I myself, I have been in a situation where I was confused on what to do. So a little backstory before I answer that. I started off my tech career in uni. I think that was like 2014 or so, when I first got my laptop and then I was blogging, right? My father is on this call. I feel like I'm shooting myself a lot in my feet. But yeah, I was serious with school. I was very, very serious with school. But I had other things. Come on, I had to make money, right? So I was blogging, and it got to a point where I started to compare myself with the likes of them. Linda Keji was big, but not, she was big, in fact, she was big, right? But I was comparing myself with Linda Keji and all of those guys in the space. And it felt like it wasn't working, right? Because every day I would look for stories on the internet to post. I would look for stuff every single day, right? But my AdSense was not coming. Because of course you need AdSense for you to make money. And then I quit blogging and then I started graphic design. Just when I quit blogging and started graphic design, the AdSense came, right? But now I wasn't interested in blogging anymore. I was now interested in graphic design, right? And then I started trying graphic design. I remember having oh my goodness, that laptop was my saver, really. I remember having a ton of tutorials that I was always watching. YouTube was my best friend, and it's still my best friend till today. Anything I want to learn, Google is your friend. The internet is your best friend, really, right? I had a ton of tutorials, right, that I was watching. Thanks to you, actually, because man, at that point I wasn't interested in blogging. So while I was doing this graphic thing, I then got frustrated with it because it wasn't working again, right? I was really impatient. That's the thing. I was impatient, right? Then I got my first gig as a blogger from Techno Mobile. I would never forget. That was my first gig as a blogger. I remember I think they paid 60K or so, right? And it was interesting for me. But when I went back to blogging, I realized that it wasn't sustainable. I think I worked for Techno Mobile and Etisalat at the time. Then I joined the company BHM at that time, right? But the blogging it wasn't hitting it. It wasn't like something was just happening with blogging I didn't like. So it now made me, I started jumping from blogging to graphic design, and then Steemit came along, right? I started writing on Steemit, and then when Steemit came, I totally forgot graphic design because at this point now, Steemit was paying me very well, like very, very well, right? Now, when Steemit died again, nothing was happening. I went back to graphic design. Now, if you notice the pattern is if something doesn't work, I will move out of it. If something doesn't work, I'll move out of it until I now fully transition to like that thing happened until I now finally transitioned to product design. Then what I now learned as a product designer, when I switched to product design, I learned that it takes patience to grow, right? You won't just come into the space today and get a job tomorrow. No, right? While some people have it very easy, I have a couple of friends that tell me that recruiters reached out to them on maybe LinkedIn or somewhere, and then they are getting paid in very high, like in foreign currencies, they are getting paid really high, right? Now, for someone who doesn't have a job, this is me who now has a job, right? And then I'm looking to even go higher, but it's not coming. Would I now say that, oh, because it's not coming, I would leave it and go away? Not to say that you shouldn't own up to your truth, right? If the reason why you are not getting a job is because you have tried everything, but design is not working, just maybe you should try something else, right? I have a principle to never run away from any challenge. I've tried front-end development in my life and it didn't work because it wasn't sticking to my head. What are the chances that I will go back? There are very, very high chances that I will go back to it because I do not quit, right? But the solution is not exactly to run away from it. Rather, is to look at where you are getting it wrong, right? Because even if you switch careers, you still have to learn certain things that would even land you your first job, right? So if product design is not, I don't want to say product design is not working. There's something you are doing that is wrong, or there's something you are not getting right, right? Sit down. Exactly. As Yanga said, most times it's soft skills. Sometimes you have what it takes. Sometimes your designs are nice, but on your first call, you are not convincing enough. I advise people to have, I think I missed this on my slide. Why didn't I add it? Before you land your first job, if you haven't had any design job and you're on the call, right? Before you land your first job, ensure you do mock interviews. Mock interviews are like where you probably you get a friend who would interview you, and then when you get your friend, make sure that friend is somebody that will tell you the hard truths, right? So if you are not getting right, it will let you know that you are not getting it right? So practice your interview, get feedback on what you're doing wrong, right? And then improve on those things. I also advise to take track of your interviews. What were the questions that you feel were that you feel you didn't answer excellently, right? I used to write my answers for my interviews, and then I'll read them out to myself and listen if I sound convincing enough, right? Now, when you do those things and you don't necessarily need to wait until the day of the interview before you start building all of this skill, right? So ask yourself questions, go online, look at on YouTube. There's this lady, Femke.design, right? Femke.design has some videos around interviews, right? So how you pass your presentation, how you pass your first interview, and all of those things. From there you can get certain questions that recruiters or hiring managers will usually ask during interview question, right? During your interview, right? So do well to answer those questions and more, and answer them extensively. Don't speak like you are tired or you shouldn't be here, right? So ensure that you practice, right? And don't run away. Like I said, Murife, there's nowhere you're running to. Don't run. Stay here with us, right? Get an accountability partner too. That's very, very important, right? Get an accountability partner who would give you that nudge or that push when you need it. Yeah. So I don't know. West, did I answer your questions correctly, please?
Oh, yeah, you did. Thank you very much for that.
You're welcome. Usman, please go next.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks so much for the presentation.
You're welcome.
Yeah. So my question goes thus, like, you made mention of something like earlier that okay, um, being the only designer maybe in the team. Do you understand? So,
Yeah.
like, like it's just like a situation happening to me right now. Do you understand? So the lead designer just resigned in the company. Do you understand? So and I just stepped in, and there is so much expectation. So, so all these things. So I just want to ask for your advice on that. So how can I cope? How can I improve myself and all that? Even the funny part that okay, like we have some designers that just like apply to our company, and I'll be the one to interview. Like it is starting tomorrow, so it's quite funny. So it's quite funny. So what's your advice on my personal development and all that? Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you for that question. So I would go back to what I said about reality versus expectation, right? So that's your new reality and you have to embrace it, right? And like I said, this is your time to shine, really, right? On personal development, you should start looking at things around leadership. When I became a design leader at my company, right? When I had like check-ins with my boss, he started to do something that was very helpful to me, right? And that was, of course, because of the level of relationship that we have, right? He started to gift me books on leadership, right? He gifted me one book on leadership first, and then he made me read it and then come back to him, right? So what you should take from that, I'm not saying you should go and meet your boss and say, please give me a book on leadership. No. What you should take from that is build a relationship with your design manager or whoever you are reporting to, right? Such that they would see you as some sort of like a mentee, right? Who they are trying to groom, right? And then when you're looking at resources these days, or when you're looking at things to how to improve your personal development, start looking at resources around leadership, around ownership, around problem solving, critical thinking, management, like how to manage like other designers on your team, right? Because there are very chances that the same way you're hiring, there will be a time where you would need to fire. You would need to fire somebody, right? Not maybe directly, but your boss can call you in and say, how do you think this person is performing, right? What do you think about this person, right? Or how do you think this person should be on the team, right? So, and sometimes that could be a tricky question, a very tricky question. They want to just see how you respond to it, right? So don't even feel pressured to respond to questions like that on the spot. You can ask for some time. Tell them that you can tell your boss that, oh, please, this question is very tricky and I'll need some time to gather my thoughts and then I will get back to you, right? Don't feel pressured to give answers on the spot, at least not all the time, right? There are some times that you need to give answers on the spot. You'll be required to think on the spot, but sometimes ask for some time to think about the question that they have just given to you, and then go back again, speak to someone in that has been in that situation, or someone you look up to, or some sort of mentor, right? And get their buy-in on what you are currently facing, right? So as much as there are really no books or I don't know articles. I mean, there are articles out there that speak on like personal development as a leader, right? But you have to be deliberate about those type of articles because some of them are just templates, really, right? They're just copy and paste and no real experience in it, right? So maybe you want to start reading about people's experience or learning about people's experiences, right? So even when it comes to hiring, you have to be at a certain level to be able to hire a good talent. Because if you hire a talent, or if a talent comes from you and the talent is problematic, they will begin to question your own credibility, right? So you have to be able to, there are still some skills required to be able to hire the best talents, right? So you should start looking around, you should start looking to learn things around those aspects. Yeah. I don't know if I answered your question correctly or want me to go more.
Yeah. You answered correctly. Thanks so much. Thanks so much.
You're welcome. You're welcome. My
Yeah.
pleasure. Augustine, could you please ask your question?
Hi, good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you for your presentation so far. Okay, my question really is not based on this topic. But I've asked it anyways.
Go ahead,
So,
please.
what do you do as a designer when the product goes live? Knowing the
What do I?
fact that what do
Mhm.
you, yeah, knowing the fact that you want to scale the product, right? Like this is the first version, the company just launched it. So how do you like see through the process to make sure the project becomes something big? What are the things to do after the project goes live as a designer and stuff like that? Yeah.
That's a very great question and a very interesting one, actually. So yeah, thank you for asking that. So what I would do, or what I would usually do as a designer when product is live, is feedback from users, real users this time, right? Because now your product is in the market, and then your users are expected to have been using it, right? Now, design would not save the world, really, or design cannot save a bad product, right? A product can be so well designed, but not solving any real problems, right? Now, those are some of the things you should be looking at, or you should be looking out for. Give the product maybe a week, or give the product a week, hear what people have to say, and then if you notice that it is not getting the traction that was expected, right, maybe you should give it some more time and you might get the traction. Or do yourself a favor and get into the field, get people to download the product and ask them questions around it, do some sort of participant observation, right? And this is something you should have done even before your product launches, right? Remember, there is a usability phase of your project, of your product, right? So if for any reason it passes that usability phase and it has launched, right, your design work is not exactly done. And that is why even in your design process, they tell you that when it gets to launch, it goes back to research and then passes those phases like that, and then up until launch again, right? That is why you find that certain products have version 1, version 2, version 3, and all of that, right? So when your product launch, your product launches, your work has just entered the phase 2, right? Speak to your users, go on sites, or if it's a website or some sort of thing, or on your Instagram page, interact with your social media manager and ask questions like, what do people have to say about the app currently? I think recently there was this talk around Chowdeck's new website and how interesting the interface is, right? That is good feedback, right? But you want to go beyond what the interface is, right? Now you want to go and ask questions around how is the experience of the user, right? Are they able to accomplish certain goals, or are they able to complete certain actions? Now also note that when your product goes live, you should have some metrics that you are looking to measure, right? If your metrics are maybe downloads, then, and let's say you want 10 downloads on the first day, and then you don't have up to 10 downloads on the first day, maybe that has to do with some sort of marketing problem. So you can reach out to the marketing guys and say, oh, hi guys, I feel like we couldn't meet our goal for the downloads, and how can we make it better, right? That's not even a time to play the blame game and say, marketing did not do their job well or something, right? So have metrics that you are measuring against, right? And ensure that those things are measurable. Don't do metrics like how is the user experience. That's not a measurable metric, right? So you want to do things like how many people went from maybe sign up to maybe the dashboard, or how many people, if it's like child deck, how many people were able to complete the phase of ordering a meal, right? So you will now want to look at things like your drop-off rates, and then you would want to address things like that, right? So as a product designer, those are like some of the things that you can begin to do before you enter the next round or next phase of designing. Yeah, I don't know, was I able to answer your question correctly?
Yes, yes, thank you very much, especially the metrics part. Thanks.
You're welcome. Um, I don't see any hands up anymore. So I'm just going to yield the mic. Thank you very much, EU. Thank you, Design with EU team, for having me. Yeah, over to you.
Thank you so very much, Onyekachi. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We've had a really great session today. Longer than expected, but really impactful. Uh, okay, guys, you can check the messages for our social media handles. And Queenette, please, can you your handles? You said we're going to drop them.
Sorry, I didn't get what you said.
Your social media handles.
Yeah. Yeah,
Let
I
me
think you
drop.
dropped them already, yes.
Okay. Okay. Okay, all right. Thank you very much. Okay, guys, I think that was all our meetings. So you can check our YouTube pages to watch previous sessions and this new session. If you missed out on anything, we'll be uploading this session soon. So be on the lookout. You can follow us on our Twitter and our LinkedIn pages. We also have a newsletter that drops. So if you want more information, please follow our media handles. We drop job updates on our newsletters. So subscribe to that if you want to have access to that. Thank you so much. And with that, we've come to the end of today's session. Good night, everyone.